I believe it was the great American philosopher R. Kelly who once said, after the party, it's the hotel lobby. Well, we're indeed making those words come true tonight. Jeff Sintel, Brandon Adams here at the lobby of the hotel that's connected to the Marlowe's Tavern, North Lake. You got to realize, we had such a great time here this evening. Beautiful weather up on the rooftop bar and outside lounge area, and everybody relaxing, enjoying some fall weather here. And then a little bit of rain came, just enough to kind of knock us back inside. But you know what? Talk about a bunch of troopers here around Dog Nation. They've all moved down here with us. Our staff has helped us get it up and running here for our Dog Nation big game preview. If you could not be with us here at Marlowe's in North Lake, thank you so much for being with us on the Dog Nation video channels right now. That's Jeff Sintel. My name's Brandon Adams. We're going to talk a lot tonight about the... What are you laughing about?
I'm still laughing. Brandon Adams knows a lyric to Ignition, guys. I mean, come on.
And so you think I know nothing about pop culture, but you've always been wrong about that. I'm a lot more plugged in than you realize.
Yeah, but R. Kelly Ignition, I mean, come on. And after about 4, you got to clear the lobby, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Jeff, it's good to have you with us tonight. Your first time being with the Marlowe's broadcast with us all season long. You've been great tonight. People love giving that inside information from you. We'll obviously talk a lot about recruiting here before we say goodbye to folks here tonight. But the topic at hand here is what's going to happen on Saturday against LSU. It's our Dog Nation big game preview. We'll preview the big game, and we'll look ahead to Dog Nation Invasion, by the way, something that our friends from Marlowe's are going to be a part of. So when you think about, as we move towards the week here, moving towards LSU on Saturday, what comes to your mind about this game?
I think Georgia likes a challenge. I think that the team itself, I think it played its best football when there was a fear factor or danger going into the South Carolina game. That's the one everybody talked to and they pointed to and they said, you know, if you don't bring it, you could be in trouble there in Columbia. I think, let's face it, Georgia is more talented than a lot of teams it faces right now through recruiting, through the way they practice. I think, you know, to kind of think about the weight room culture that builds Georgia, I think this Bulldog team likes seeing a lot of 45s on the bar.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've had a lot of wheels spinning on that bar a lot each and every week in the SEC, but I think they're going to relish having a lot of 45s on that bar this weekend in Death Valley.
The point that I've made, and maybe our audience here on site will agree with us on this as well, so many of Georgia's first 6 games were the kinds of games where you said, okay, Georgia played to this level against this opponent, but what would it look like had Georgia been playing a better team? The great thing about LSU on Saturday is there is no evaluation like that needed. You're either good enough to go on the road, something if you want to go back and look the last few years, top 10 teams on the road at LSU, it's really only Alabama that's won those games. Other than that, you know, top 10 teams, what is it? Les Miles was famous for saying that Death Valley was the place that dreams go to die. I mean, for a lot of teams, minus Alabama, that's been the case. We get to find out on Saturday, though, if Georgia really is good enough to pass this test. I agree with you. I think that Georgia is ready for a game of this level of significance. And based on, admittedly not a full game yet, but parts of this game and parts of that game and parts of that game, if you add them all together and say, what does this look like on the same field on the same day? I got to tell you, I think that Georgia may be ready for this.
Yeah, I think what I think Alabama has dealt with for so many years for so well is that culture, and I guess it's psychology where when you're supposed to beat the man and you're going to get the best shot from everybody week in and week out, that has to get a little bit of fatigue right there, especially when you're supposed to every week, you know that, I mean, it's like boxing. If a heavyweight is always fighting a cruiserweight, the cruiserweight is never supposed to win, but the cruiserweight can come with a lucky shot or something like that. I just think Georgia, everybody needs to look at this football team and say, and let's be very critical. Let's be analytical. I don't think the defensive line will be what it was last year. I think they will never find a John Atkins.
Okay.
I think the linebackers, there's no Raquan there. There's no Lorenzo Carter. But as we've kind of hinted at and thought for most of the year, other pieces could be better. I think the back end might be better.
It's a better secondary right now than it was a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any debate about that.
And how close can Georgia get? Because where is Adam Anderson going to be in 4 games? Where's Brenton Cox going to be in 4 games? Where's Channing Tindall going to be in 4 games? I think you're starting to see the depth and the young faces kind of bust through a little bit.
And before I get a lot of comments on this subject, I do want to piggyback off that because you've written about this at DogNation.com. One of my favorite things at the website each week is your freshman report where you talk about the first-year guys that got into the program. And if you read that every single week, one of the things that I think is really cool in there is you see, again, a name that you just mentioned, Channing Tindall, getting more and more into the stat sheet each week. In November, I'm not telling you he's Roquan Smith, but he's not really a freshman anymore. At that point in time, he's been on the field, he's got some experience. All of a sudden, he's more capable of contribute than a first-year player in the month of September would be. And you said there's no John Atkins on this roster right now. Jordan Davis, not that guy yet either, but, with Devontae Wyatt injured on Saturday against Vanderbilt, Davis played a good bit. And Kirby Smart after the game was pretty pointed in his remarks. Still needs to lose some weight. Still not there yet in terms of being that zero technique anchor for that defensive line. But he's not all that far away either. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the field as much as he was. I will tell you, Jeff, I do get a little optimistic about a couple of these freshmen and how a much bigger nose guard, playing some, a much faster linebacker, playing some, how much they could change the fortunes of this defense by the time you get to November. Doesn't help you a ton against LSU, but against Auburn, against Alabama in an SEC championship game, the emergence of those freshmen could be a real big deal.
Yeah, I just think when you look at seasons as a whole, I love how it never seems to be what we thought it was going to be coming in. Like if you want to talk fear factor, I guess we could have talked about, what if we would have said Andrew Thomas was not going to start every game? What if we were going to say Cade Mays is going to start on the offensive line at both guard and tackle? What if we said Georgia would not have a 100-yard rusher through 6 games? What if we said that Georgia was not going to get, brilliant play yet out of James Cook, Demetrius Robertson? I think the way Georgia is doing it a little bit differently than maybe the scripts would have had to believe. I think it's very interesting seeing how it all come together the way it is so far.
All right, we're going to take a lot of comments, but can I have some fun for just like 30 seconds if you don't mind?
We already got Ignition quoted.
Yeah, listen.
So that's the coolest thing you've said on one of our broadcasts so far.
We're at the Marlows at North Lake. It's our Dog Nation Big Game preview. We're obviously looking ahead to Dog Nation Invasion on Saturday against LSU. But that doesn't mean that the chief Gator hater ever takes his eyes off that cocktail party against Florida coming up a couple weeks after that. And one of the things I love about Marlowe's Tavern is, we say all the time it's chef-inspired food. That means the local chef on site has a little bit of leeway and a little bit of freedom about the kinds of things that he or she wants to have on the menu. Well, in honor of us being here tonight, knowing that I bring a little Gator hater quality with me here, do you know what I hold here in this plate in my hand, Jeff? The chef here at Marlowe's, just for us tonight, has cooked up some fried gator bites. How about that? I mean, listen, yeah, absolutely. That's worth the ovation that you get here. First of all, it's fantastic.
That looks about like the size of the gator Louis Sean was holding in his Florida official visit pictures.
I'm going to need you to talk for 2 seconds while I chew this up. This is great, though.
Hold on. That's another Dog Nation first. Brandon says, I'm going to need you to talk for 2 seconds. So, great night so far. We've dodged raindrops. We've moved from the lobby. If everybody wonders what the Dog Nation guys are doing down in the lobby, we started off on a rooftop bar. We were looking over the Atlanta traffic, and I did feel a little guilty thinking that we were hanging out talking Georgia football while everybody else was swirling their way through the downtown connector.
What a beautiful view this Marlowe's at North Lake has. It's absolutely great. And if the invasion of Marlowe's at North Lake is any kind of indication what the invasion in Baton Rouge and New Orleans is going to be later on this weekend, I think we're in quite a treat coming up for the game on Saturday.
I think some people are going to be sipping on Coke and rum, and I think some people are going to be in some lobbies late at night as well.
BMO Menifee in our Facebook comment section says the Gator Bites look good. They are, BMO. I got to tell you, they are fantastic. I'm going to enjoy devouring these, and while I do, I'm going to take some comments here as we get in here and have some discussion on everything that's going on here. Jason Standard says, how about them dogs? Yeah, Jason, we're certainly excited about all of that. Annie Chandler, excited about the fried gator bites? Yeah, no doubt. Listen, if you're a gator hater, you love nothing more than chomping on some gator bites here and then chomping on the gators in Jacksonville later on. James Crump's got a prediction for the game, Jeff. He's got 38-13. Georgia over LSU on Saturday. I believe I may actually blow my lid if Georgia were to win by that much coming up on Saturday. That'd be quite a performance.
So an old sports writer thing that I've always heard, especially when I was in Alabama, working for the years that I did covering, working for the Birmingham News and AL.com, I was always told that whenever a team goes to Death Valley in Baton Rouge, especially at night, you need to be 17 points better in order to win that game. 17 points better to come out alive with a one-point victory.
It's a tough stadium. It's incredibly tough stadium.
And if anybody that's never been, if anybody's on the feed, weigh in. If this is your first timer to LSU, let us know, because here's the thing. They're coming in 2018, and Georgia won't be back until 2030 to LSU. So think about if you're on the fence about whether you're going to make that trip to Death Valley and LSU, and think about it. You ain't get another chance at the Tigers in Baton Rouge until 2030.
Brett Stephanie in our Facebook comment section bringing up the point about David Marshall. I know there's been some chatter about Marshall coming off practice here today. Not seen at practice, the Dog Nation reporters had put out there earlier today on DogNation.com. Anything you can tell us about the status of David Marshall right now?
I think Kirby Smart, if you look at some of the notes that are coming out of his press session after practice today, said doesn't look good for David Marshall to be in action on Saturday against LSU. That compounds the worries there with Devontae Wyatt. Will he be available as well? It's a foot injury, and it hasn't been disclosed what the severity of that might be just yet.
Paul Hicks says, this is on the YouTube comment section here in our Dog Nation Big Game Preview Live tomorrow, lives in North Lake. He says the Georgia defense has been a chess match this year. Teams really don't know what to expect. And if you want to keep that analogy going here, Jeff, in terms of the chess match on Saturday, Joe Burrow is a quarterback that wants to be really safe. He hadn't thrown an interception at all until the Florida game a week ago. This is a team in LSU that I thought would be more dynamic with his wide receiver play, but for the most part, that really hasn't happened. Jefferson's had an okay year, but the transfer of Jonathan Giles from Texas Tech hasn't really popped yet. The five-star Terrace Marshall hasn't really popped yet. Jamar Chase, I don't know that he's really involved much in the offense at all right now. What does the chess match with the Georgia defense look like against LSU's offense on Saturday? You know, Brissett's a pretty good-looking running back, but this is not a Darius Geis. This isn't a Leonard Fournette. You know, right now there's not a Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham-style player. How are you defending this LSU defense? Is it one of those deals where you want to put a lot of pressure on Burrow to see if you can force him into a mistake, or do you allow an offense for LSU that is, for the most part, I don't want to say pedestrian, but certainly not on the upper echelon of the top performers in the SEC? Are you just content to let them grind it out for whatever they can get?
Well, if there's one thing that we can pick up, a common trait about what Georgia has done so far this year, is whatever the big 95-pound sledgehammer that the other team has on offense, their strongest weapon, their biggest trick, whatever, they want to take that away. So if you look at the way this game plan unfolds, I think Georgia's best players are in the secondary. Mm-hmm. So they want to make Joe Burrow throw the ball around their best players. Simply put, I think Georgia, despite the variety of looks that Kirby Smart talked about in the run game, despite being down 2 defensive linemen now, I think Georgia's going to want to stop the Tigers from running the football and say, Joe Burrow, have at it. See if you can beat us. Now, Joe Burrow is a pretty good quarterback. Got a little bit more legs than most people might imagine. I think he has a 70-yard touchdown run this year against Ole Miss earlier in the season. He's a guy that's been sitting in the Ohio State program waiting for his chance to play. And you want to talk about quarterback issues and quarterback stuff because it always comes up on every broadcast. You got to feel a little bit interested about how a guy can come in from Ohio State with all the shrink wrap still in his career, basically, and immediately win the job. It's basically Joe Burrow is the quarterback there for LSU.
Yeah, completely. They gave Justin McMillan a chance to win that job. They gave Miles Brennan the chance to win that job, and over the course of the spring practice, they just weren't able to do it. So the writing was on the wall when Burrow came in. One of the things I'll slightly disagree with, though, here is what Cyrus and Knox Bowen mentions on our YouTube broadcast, that this sounds like the South Carolina game all over again. For me, it's not that same level of confidence. I'll explain why. If you watched or listened to Dog Nation Daily the week leading up to South Carolina, the one thing that I said a lot was I thought that Georgia's offensive line was a huge mismatch in favor of UGA against the South Carolina defensive line. I just didn't think that South Carolina had that personnel up front to really handle what Georgia's going to bring to the table. LSU, from a personnel standpoint, is really different. Now, it's transfers again. You're going to hear when you talk about what LSU has this year, you're going to keep hearing that word transfer a lot. The defensive line, adding Braden Fehoko, even with the Clavon Chesson injury, bringing in Fehoko there as a defensive lineman gives some beef to LSU that South Carolina did not have. So if I speak about confidence in the game from a fan standpoint, I'm talking about winning the game. But I think that LSU, especially on the defensive side, is too talented for Georgia to go in and just manhandle and kind of blow off the ball the way that Georgia did in the third quarter against LSU. I should say against South Carolina. I don't see that recipe in the cards for Georgia in this game. It's a game that I believe that Georgia will win, certainly can win, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as the second half against South Carolina turned out to be.
So I'm not going to try and spoil the first 3 quarters of the game, but you can just look at Georgia football. The team's going to get off to a slow start. What's going to happen unless they get a turnover is they're going to keep pounding that run game and pounding that run game, and they're eventually going to force LSU back. They're going to knock them back, and the guys that tried to hold up in their gaps first and second quarter, third quarter, they're going to wilt in that fourth quarter because Georgia's offensive line with 330 pounds pounding away at him. I think it's physics and it's mass. Eventually, Georgia can weigh him down. I don't think Georgia will run the ball effectively against LSU until very late in the game, maybe early second half. You know why? It's because LSU's pretty good. But also, if you watch, folks, watch that number 40 for LSU. Devin White. I mean, I'm not going to get some tomato cans thrown at me here in the lobby.
You got to be careful stuff like this.
But I'm going to say, you're going to mention the name Devin White in the same sentence with Roquan Smith. And
I think Devin White's very good, but he's not Roquan Smith.
I think he is every bit as good as Roquan Smith was. Just as fast, bigger. Those are the words of Kirby Smart. He even said, watching the film.
Yeah, but you got to talk up your opponent.
Well, that's talking up the opponent. Did he do a better job of talking up LSU, or did Coach O do a better job of talking up
I don't
Georgia?
know. Orgeron's kind of a weird dude. He said a couple things in his press conference that I thought were a little weird about Georgia. Talking about being slow off the pass rush and not getting sacks as the quarterback. You know, he's trying to be an analyst. You know, that his fans want to be a coach.
I just think, you look at the way everything, he's really stinking good. I mean, that guy,
he's good.
Number one linebacker, I think, that will be picked in the inside linebacker that we picked in the draft next year, team MVP last year. I mean, when Kirby Smart says just as fast as Roquan, but 10 pounds heavier, that should get the Georgia fans' attention a little bit, especially with what Georgia's got going on at guard. Young guards. Going to likely play with young guards in this game as well.
J. Cody Ratliff says, any big commits coming up? We're going to talk some recruiting here in a moment. Nick Lurch also wanted to know if Jeff's got any good recruiting news for us. We'll get that coming up in just a moment. I also want to mention something that John, I think it was John, John or Adams in the comment section a little earlier, said that he thought it was going to be more than 10,000 Georgia fans in Louisiana on Saturday. I'll take the over on that. I'll take more than 10,000 Georgia fans in Baton Rouge on Saturday.
Are you asking me how many will be left in the stadium by the end of the fourth quarter?
Oh, wow.
I just think that.
Well, can you imagine if Georgia empties another stadium, if Death Valley's empty in the fourth quarter, that might be a fun ride back to New Orleans.
When's the last time Georgia went to an SEC road venue and did not empty the stadium? You got to think about it a little bit. Road games, everybody remembers this year so far. Carolina, Missouri. Yeah. There were some Missouri fans around there as well, but last year, it was almost like they had their way with a lot of teams on the road.
Not only that, but also winning comfortably. According to OddsShark, Georgia's 8-2 in its last 10 games on the road against the spread.
I think I'd like to see, again, I think Georgia needs to. I want to see what this football team can do down some adversity. You have to like the way they responded. I think they were down for a field goal attempt, a kickoff, and then one snap. That's as long as they were down to Vanderbilt before they take the shot downfield. And then you saw what they had to do when they had to go 2 minutes. And I think that was some of the best football Georgia has played so far, which is what Jake Fromm does very well. If you get him to split guys out and go run the 2-minute offense, that's something he is very strong at right now.
That's Jeff Sintel. My name is Brandon Adams. We're live here at the Marlows in North Lake for our Dog Nation Big Game Preview, looking ahead to the Big Dog Nation invasion on Saturday. And speaking of Marlowe's Tavern, we've been talking a lot about the local sourced ingredients they're using for their chef-inspired food right now. For the next couple of weeks, you get a chance to try some of these great Georgia-grown, do you say pecans or pecans?
Okay, if I'm in North Georgia, I'm going to say pecans, but if I'm in South Georgia, on a recruiting trip or something like that, I'm going to say pecan.
Yeah. So however you say
pecans.
Pecans, whatever. They are here and they are fantastic. The chefs, just like the great chef here at the Marlows in North Lake, using those in some special ingredients. So check out the Marlows closest to you and you can find out how the pecans are being used. You're going to really, really like that. We love chef-inspired food and we love the locally sourced ingredients that the chefs use around here. It's one of the reasons why we're big fans of Marlows Tavern. Now, I'm getting a million. Yes, please.
I got a question for you. Maybe I can jump ahead of one person on the line. So you're eating gator tail, and that makes me think about this right now.
Yeah, this is great, by the way.
If they played the LSU-Florida game again, who do you think would win?
I don't think that Florida could beat LSU 6 times out of 10. I don't.
So you think maybe you saw the best of Florida, perhaps in that game?
I do. Now, I think people know that I'm a Gator hater, and I'll never apologize for that. The one thing I will admit is that Florida has turned out to be a more physical team than I thought they were. I still don't think they're very good. Felipe Franks somebody was mentioning this earlier here at Marlows North Lake. He's still only completing like 50% of his passes. So and barely that. This is still not a great team, but they are. This past Saturday against LSU, 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State on the road in the SEC, 2 straight weeks in the road Florida went for Mississippi State. They have proven to be a little bit more physical than I thought they would be. From that standpoint, I got to give them credit.
You going to call that one of those false positives in the SEC a little bit about Florida a little bit?
I think they're still going to lose games. I just think they're a little harder to beat. They're going to lose, but they're going to be harder to beat.
Harder to beat. There you have it.
Now, we're going to take a lot of comments on recruiting here, a lot of questions on recruiting before we get ready to go, because when we got Jeff here, that's what we need to do and want to do. But one of the things, Jeff, I've had a chance to do this week, and I'm really excited about this, on Friday from New Orleans, we're going to do our Dog Nation Invasion preview special there. And one of the things we're going to do is look back on some of the heroes of great Georgia LSU games from the past. I've had a chance to, I really spent my entire week this week talking to ex-Georgia guys about great moments against LSU. It's been really, really fun. If I ask you about some of the games that you remember from Georgia LSU's of the past, two teams that haven't played together a lot. Georgia hasn't played LSU at all since 2013. Hasn't played in Baton Rouge since 2008. I grew up a huge fan in the 80s. Georgia and LSU, played 87, 88, but just not a lot of games for Georgia, or maybe it was 86, 87. Either way, not a lot of games for Georgia against LSU. But which ones stick out and come to mind here?
I think the one I think about a lot is the 98 game, the Quincy Carter game a lot. That was the game when Donnan, I guess he had said, you're not going to get back on the bus and going back to Athens if we kick the ball anywhere near Kevin Falk in that game. Kevin Falk was the brilliant return man, athletic guy for LSU. I don't even think a ball came within maybe Medier of where Kevin Falk was lined up. I think of that game. I think of that one game where Aaron Murray, I think that is Aaron Murray's signature game where Georgia was down, I think, three of their best receivers, and Justin Scott Wesley makes that big catch at the end. I think about that game as probably one that Aaron Murray just kind of put on the cape and let's go. I'm going to show you how good I can play.
2013.
Yeah, and then the other one that sticks in my craw that Georgia fan will probably always remember is that AJ Green game.
2009, a frustrating game.
Yeah,
bad officiating.
You look at AJ Green.
They were out to get us back then too. Just like they are now.
AJ Green basically just points into the stands at his family. He was holding up, I think, a banner or whatever, and he got called for excessive celebration. Yeah. I mean, AJ Green's a lot of things, but he's not excessively celebrated much of anything in his life except that touchdown against the Falcons a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad you brought up the 1998 game because I think there's certain games in Georgia history that kind of get lost to time. And because, Jim Donnan would only be around at Georgia for 2 more years, and because Quincy Carter's career, not just at Georgia, but in football in general, doesn't finish the way that he initially had hoped, I think people have a tendency to sort of wipe that entire era out of the record books, including the fact that the following week after Georgia won at LSU, they lost at home to Tennessee. College game day was in Athens for the first time. That was a big-time game and kind of a letdown performance from UGA. I'll be the first to admit that. And yet, if you don't know any of that, if you don't know the immediate future, the distant future, and all you know is Georgia on the road against an LSU team that was ranked in the top 10 the time that game was played, I can promise you that Saturday night, there was a lot of celebrating going on around Dog Nation. Now, Dog Nation in 1998 was smaller than it is in 2018, but there was a lot of celebrating going on that night when Georgia went into Baton Rouge, won on the road against the top 10 team. LSU didn't finish that way. Georgia didn't finish that way. But for that night, that was a lot of fun.
That was one of those that had Georgia fans kind of delirious all the way home, driving back. I mean, I think that 8-hour trip must have lasted about 4 hours in everyone's mind. And I want to also harken back to the 2008 game. I believe that's the Darrell Gamble game where he has 2 interception returns for touchdowns.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, that guy, you want to talk about a guy, no linebacker ever has 2 interception returns for a touchdown, but that guy did. And that was on a field with guys like Matthew Stafford, Sean Marino in that game. And I mean, LSU had a pretty good team, and Georgia, what they end up with 50 points in that game? It was like it was a very brilliant performance for them.
Can I give you another cool one that doesn't come up a lot? And I promise we're going to talk some recruiting. I promise, and we'll do it a bunch of these. But Bruce Eklund in our Facebook comment section, I'm not old enough to remember this, but I've seen the highlights. Our friends at the UGA Vault have some highlights of this. 1978, Lindsey Scott, famous for the Baloo to Scott play against Florida in 1980. Kickoff return against Go to the UGA Vault, find the app, and get the app, and you can watch the 1978 game and see the kick return from Lindsey Scott there. That is an awesome highlight, and the kind of thing that Scott's so famous for the 1980 game, Jeff, that you forget that as I guess would have been a freshman in 78, that he had a very big moment there.
Yeah, it's one of those, forgive me, but I just saw I just saw the movie with my wife, A Star is Born.
Okay.
So I'm looking for someone. It's a very good movie, by the way, guys. I mean, check your guy card out. You're going to love that movie. Anybody else back me up that's on the feed or whatever. But what I mean by The Star is Born that's kind of ringing through my head right now is there seems to be a guy in this rivalry that just the signature moment of his Georgia career, should Georgia win, happens at LSU. And I mean, if everyone's looking for one of those Star is Born moments, is that one of those for maybe Elijah Holyfield, a James Cook, a Jeremiah Holloman? I think it's got sort of that feel to it where somebody just rises up and finds a new level to their game.
Every now and then a player for Georgia will do something so great that he gets a painting. You know what I'm saying? It's like Lorenzo Carter blocking a field goal in overtime of the Rose Bowl. You get a painting for that. You know, David Green to Bron Haynes in 2001. You get oil paintings done of you when you do it. It's more than a photograph. It's a painting. You go down LSU and make a big play, you make it a painting out of that.
So Mr. Daly, I got a hot seat question for you. The MLP, the most likely painting guy coming out of this game, who would be that? Who would be that guy?
That's a good question.
Who's the guy that's going to just flash?
Is it another pick six from Baker? You know, I like your idea about the running back. You know, we've been waiting. You know, DeAndre Swift, to his credit, one of the things I love about him is he's very patient. Anytime he's asked about, hey, you haven't really had the big game yet, you haven't had the big moment yet, he always says, it'll come, it'll come, it'll come. He's very patient. That's a guy that you could see waiting and waiting and waiting for the big moment and having it show up in a big way there.
Well, if everybody on the offensive side of the ball has their best game, their best possible game, there's a lot of guys to talk about there, but I think Swift taking control of a game might be that. And the other, everyone's going to harp about where are the carries, where are the 100-yard games. There's not a lot of dents on the fenders or a lot of tread wear on the tires of a lot of Georgia's backs right now.
All right, people want to talk recruiting. I have yapped too long. Can we do? You're a big fan of the hurry up here. By the way, y'all take a look at our step and repeat. Still got a little water on it from when we got rained on a little earlier. You like the hurry up. Can we go hurry up here, Jeff, and try to get as many recruiting questions as we can while we have you here for our Dog Nation big game preview from the Marlows North Lake? Are you okay with that here for a moment?
Yeah, man. Let's go.
By the way, Bill Kibbe mentioning the Godwin catch at Notre Dame. That's also the kind of thing you get a painting from, right?
That's a painting.
Bill's 100% right about that. Justin Vetter says, have you been able to talk to Jaden Hazelwood since his UGA decommitment?
The visit went well. Miami, I think that's clear to say. I think the Jaden Hazelwood narrative is going to run a long way, guys. If he does something within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next month, finish line to that thing is not until December the 19th.
Chris Little brings up a good point. It's a comment, but I want you to respond to it nonetheless. With the Marshall injury, Jay Hayes has got to step up more now. Would you agree this is potentially a time for the transfer from Notre Dame to step up in a big way?
Got to be a guy. I mean, this is what he came to Georgia for, to play in games like this, 6'3", 290 pounds. Got to remember, this guy was a high school senior in 2014. This is his 5th year of big boy college football. He's a guy that probably should make a difference.
Charles Kaiser asked for a Nakobe Dean update. We're all on sort of bated breath after the J.D. Bertrand decommitment for another linebacker domino to fall here. What can you tell us about Dean?
Dean will not make his decision known until December the 19th. Dean is still plotting out his remaining officials. He's got one to Auburn. LSU will get one if his schedule clears. There's been some reports about whether he was going to take an official visit to Georgia for the Auburn game. I cannot confirm that one because I hear conflicting things about Nakobe Dean, but I do think Georgia has a tremendous shot at landing the 5-star linebacker.
Savannah Atlanta in our YouTube comment section says, why do we recruit Demetrius Roberts if all we needed to do was blockers to open up holes?
Because
Which kind of piggybacks with the Hazelwood question, too.
Demetrius Robertson will one day be able to block, and then he'll be able to go run the 9 route, and he'll be able to run away from people, and that will make him very effective in the Georgia offense.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff on this. Let's not be so quick to assume that this is a static situation. The way that Robertson is now is the way that it'll always be. By the way, even by November, and there's still a lot of football left to be played before you get to the final month of the regular season, and Georgia, as you know, could have 4 more games after that.
I'm not trying to be the defense attorney for Demetrius Robertson right here, but here's one thing no one says about Demetrius. Number 1, he played in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Number 2, he was hurt and missed all of last year in college football out there in California. I don't think he was in the weight room. I don't think his body was ready to come in and play in the SEC and play for Georgia right away.
Colt Gotti asked about George Pickens, the Auburn committed wide receiver. Any update on him and a relationship with Georgia here?
Well, he didn't make the trip to Georgia. A lot of people had reported that he was going to. I never really thought that he was going to make the trip for the visit for the Vanderbilt game. personally, every scouting, every recruiting analyst has their own evaluations there. I think Georgia would be better served pouring all their energy into retaining Jaden Hazelwood rather than George Pickens.
Cyrus in Knox Bowen says Lewis Seen's going to be a dog, right? Now, we're going to find out tomorrow. Now, I will say this. Tomorrow, probably around, I would say, 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time, something along those lines, we'll go live on the Dog Nation video channels. We'll catch up with Jeff Sintel, hopefully, on this. Once Seen makes his announcement, we're going to cover it live on Dog Nation tomorrow. So, for those of you wondering where to go for the Seen announcement, we'll have the video coverage right there for you on Dog Nation.
Yeah, that'll be kind of tricky because, I mean, the first Dog Nation invader that will have boots on the ground
That's right.
in Louisiana is I'm going to be in Louisiana
Jeff's going to be like George Washington crossing the Delaware. He's going to be, up on the boat, leading the way into Louisiana tomorrow. You're leading the way there.
Lewis and Clark, Adams and Sintel, the expedition out to Baton Rouge.
So Jeff is going to Louisiana tomorrow, but we're going to see if we can, before he gets on a plane, we're going to see if we can squeeze some time with him. And actually, it'd be after you land there, I guess. But one way or another, we're going to try to figure that out. But the point is, can you foreshadow the announcement for Seen tomorrow at all?
I'm going to say that Lewis Seen will make an announcement tomorrow, and I think he's given every indication through his public on-the-record comments that a Georgia fan should feel like they have a good chance tomorrow.
Trent McGinnis, this is a serious point. He says the D-Rob situations make recruits look the other way. Even though you and I are both optimistic that Robertson will eventually have a role in the Georgia offense, the fact that it's happening so slow, do you think that's a turnoff?
Well,
Hazelwood may be included
I wonder who can really, bank on saying something like that in recruiting circles. Because let's remember, D-Rob did not go to Georgia. He went to Cal. He went to a spot where he thought they would feature him in a throw-happy offense. And then he decided he wanted to come back to Georgia. I mean, he had other options. He could have went to West Virginia and played with Will Greer. He could have went to a lot of places, and he chose Georgia. And, I mean, everybody sees Tyler Simmons get in the game. Everybody sees Jason Stanley get in the game. Trey Blunt played in every game last year. I'm sorry, but if you don't block, I mean, the part I don't get is Georgia's called running back U for a reason. And what they do is they want to pound guys and wear guys down. I think that's still what the Georgia fan wants to see. I wonder if the fan base that if Georgia fed the tight ends with 7 balls a game and they had, 300 yards passing, I'm sure people would be wondering, but when are we going to run the rock?
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone wants all the playmakers to touch the ball on every play and score 100 points. That's the way it goes. All right, let me wrap up with this one. It's a good question from Tommy Odom. John Emery Jr. there on Saturday. Can Georgia have any contact with him whatsoever?
I mean, why do you need to recruit that guy or have contact with him? I mean, Del McGee was at his game the other time, and I think this is a very firm, very solid commitment.
I mean, can you give him one of these? Can you give him one of those?
Oh, I'm sure. Is
that a minor violation to?
I think the only contact they need is to be dropping the ball into the hands of the referee after touchdowns on long rushes. I think that's the type of contact that would fare well and trade well with John Emery Jr.
It is going to be such a big weekend for Dog Nation as we invade Louisiana and New Orleans on Friday, Baton Rouge on Saturday. And the great news is we're taking the folks from Marlowe's with us. If you're going to be there, we hope to see you as well. Make sure you watch Dog Nation Daily tomorrow. I'll tell you more about how you can see us in Louisiana this weekend. And if you're watching the game on Saturday and you're looking for a great place to get some food, maybe take a break, come on over here and have some lunch or dinner at the Marlowe's Tavern. Closest to you, a great place to do that. Don't forget, chef-inspired food, local source ingredients right now, those great Georgia-grown pecans, a great way to take advantage of that. And also, if you're lucky enough, maybe the next time you come to Marlowe's, you can get some fried gator bites as well, because after all, a good gator hater loves chomping on the gators, both here at Marlowe's and at the cocktail party coming up in a couple weeks. I'm going to enjoy these. I'll see you tomorrow morning for a Dog Nation Daily. Jeff will have you for the Sintel Intel. Live coverage of Lewis Seen tomorrow afternoon. What a busy week it is around here for Dog Nation. Live coverage for Lewis Seen tomorrow, and a whole bunch of stuff getting ready for LSU and Coach O on Saturday.
So Brandon, the pundits are already chirping. You're having a slow start right there with your gator tail. Man.
I found out that eating and talking. First of all, I can't stand people who are like loud chomping, loud eating. I don't want to be subjecting people to a bunch of stuff in the microphone like that. I'm trying to be respectful of the audience.
Always.
But I'm about to eat them as soon as we go off the air. By the way.
Always the professional broadcaster.
That is Jeff Sintel. I'm Brandon Adams. To all of you, thank you so much. Huge thanks to Marlowe's as well for always being gracious hosts for us. We'll see you next time at our Marlowe's Big Game Preview very soon. Looking forward to previewing the Florida game here in a couple of weeks. Tomorrow morning live on Dog Nation Daily and everything else around DogNation.com. You all have a great night, everybody.